and welcome. I am so excited to have you join us today, and I am even more excited to have Victoria St. John from Progyny join us today, and we are going to talk about Progyny. So Victoria, welcome. I'm so glad you're here. And I was wondering, can you tell us what is Progyny?
Yeah, of course, Sarah. Thank you so much for having us join today. Just to give a little background about myself before I go into the benefit, I am the Associate Account Manager that works for Gannett, and I work closely with Brandy Guthrie, so we together really support the benefit on the client side, and I'm really excited to just be able to explain what Progyny is and how we can support your path to parenthood. Progyny is an all-inclusive family building benefit. Our mission is to make any person's dream of parenthood come true through a healthy, timely, and supported fertility journey. We really focus on outcomes more than we focus on cost, and we remove any of the unnecessary barriers that most conventional fertility benefits have in place. Our solution allows for patients and their doctors to determine the best course of treatment for your specific needs, and we do so by supporting you with industry-leading technology and also access to our curated network of Progyny fertility specialists.
That's really interesting, and I think, you know, I myself years ago had gone through infertility issues. And I remember there was a very distinct process that I had to go through. You know, I had to, go through this particular process for 12 months. And then after that, I could be considered for, this, that, or the other thing. So how is Progyny different from, the process that, many people think that they have to go through when they're going through just the regular insurance program? How is that process different?
That's a great question, Sarah. And really, by breaking down those barriers, what we mean is if you and your doctor determine that IVF is going to be the best course of action and going to really promote the most success for your fertility journey, then Progyny has no barrier saying that you cannot go forward with IVF first. Many traditional carriers will have you pursue IUI multiple times before you can graduate to moving forward with IVF. And the issue with that is a lot of fertility benefits have a monetary cap or a limit of how much coverage you have. So if you have to move forward with 3-4 IUIs, you could therefore really utilize that whole monetary cap that you're provided within that fertility benefit. With Progyny, we remove that barrier so you don't have to pursue IUI first. If it is up to you, and your provider. If you would like to move forward with an IUI cycle, you definitely can. But if your provider and you determine that IVF is really going to promote the most success, then you can move forward with that right away. It doesn't take away then you're not really utilizing the monetary amount or your Progyny benefit for a service that really is not going to bring success to you in your fertility journey.
Now, just so that people who are watching know, so like you and I both know what IUI is and IVF is, but can you just explain what those are?
Yeah.
I have to go through the procedure, just the words.
Yeah. So IUI is intrauterine insemination, and IVF is intravenous fertilization. The difference between the two, IUI is going to be just an artificial insemination. So it's where they're taking, and I know you said don't go through the
right. Yeah, we don't need that.
IVF is a little more extensive, so you're actually retrieving the eggs and then moving forward with a frozen embryo transfer once you've fertilized those eggs.
Now, somebody going through the infertility process with Progyny, or going through the whole process, are they working with their doctor? Are they working with a Progyny doctor? How does that work?
Another great question. So Progyny has its own network of reproductive endocrinologists. They may or may not be within your medical carrier's network, but you will want to ensure that if you're moving forward with fertility services, that you do connect with a patient care advocate. They will assist you in finding a Progyny provider that is in your area, and then they'll work to get you an authorization so you're covered for the services with that provider.
Okay. Now, how does it work with Progyny? So, I mean, I'm assuming it's not unlimited, right? You know that I'm assuming there are certain criteria and things that you have to meet and go through. So what does that involve?
Yeah, so first and foremost, you do have to be enrolled in an employer-sponsored medical plan. And if you would like coverage for your spouse, then you would also want that spouse to be enrolled as a dependent onto your plan. Once you are enrolled, you will reach out to your patient care advocate. They will get your account created, help you find a provider in your area, and then again, authorize the services that are upcoming. Now, when it comes to how much benefit you have, Progyny uses what we call smart cycles to determine how much of the benefit you have to utilize. So instead of giving you $20,000 to use, Net provides you with 2 smart cycles per family per lifetime. So it is a shared benefit, but when you are authorized for 1 treatment cycle, it covers services for both the male and female partner. If that is applicable in that case. Now, the smart cycles cover services such as the IVF, IUI, artificial insemination, timed intercourse, egg freezing, and also preliminary surrogacy services as well. And again, depending on how extensive the treatment is going to determine how much is deducted from your smart cycle balance. So as an example, with the 2 smart cycles that you are provided, let's say you and your provider decide to move forward with an IUI cycle, that will deduct 1/4 from one of your smart cycles. So you would have 1 3/4 remaining. Now let's say that that IUI is unsuccessful and you and your provider decide to move forward with an IVF cycle instead. That IVF retrieval process is going to deduct 3/4 from your smart cycle balance. So then you would have 1 smart cycle remaining. And with that 1 smart cycle that you have remaining, you can then pursue a frozen embryo transfer, which is where they take the embryo that was created from that IVF retrieval, they will transfer that embryo into the woman's uterus, and then that will deduct 1/4 from your smart cycle balance. So in that journey alone, for the IUI that deducted 1/4, the IVF retrieval that deducted 3/4, and then the frozen embryo transfer that deducts an additional 1/4, you've utilized 1 1/4 smart cycle, and you still have 3/4 remaining to pursue any other treatment that you may need. If you have remaining embryos, you can pursue subsequent frozen embryo transfers if necessary. You can even utilize that benefit to transfer for a second child if that first frozen embryo transfer is successful as well.
That's really exciting. And when somebody does connect, basically the coordinator will help the person, understand things a little bit better, and because it's exciting and it's overwhelming, to think about all the different options that may be available to employees. So they have that support to be able to kind of talk through how it all works, and then the provider is aware. Obviously, if they're they're aware of the smart cycle and how that all works.
Yep. So the Progyny providers are very educated on what is included within your bundled package. So when you receive that authorization, it covers all of the services from start to finish for that treatment cycle. Your Progyny provider knows what services are included. So you're never going to run out of coverage in between. And it also really provides you the opportunity to use some of the services that you may not have the ability to use if you were, say, a self-pay patient or going through a conventional fertility benefit. Some of those services include genetic testing on the eggs that are retrieved and fertilized that ensures that the embryo that is created is viable and will really result in a successful transfer later on. We also cover ICSI, which is intracytoplasmic sperm injection. That is where they are actually taking the sperm and injecting it right into the egg to really optimize the chance for fertilization. This is used in most IVF cycles nowadays, so we actually include that within our bundle so you don't have to make those decisions while you're pursuing your care.
Nice. That's really nice. I do remember when I was going through it, I had a whole cocktail of medications that I needed to take and do. Is that something that's also managed? And is that something like how would people receive their medications and that sort of thing?
Yeah, so your medication coverage is embedded with your Progyny benefit as well. So you'll actually go through Progyny RX. When you receive the authorization for your treatment cycle, you're also simultaneously authorized for the medication that's needed as well. So your Progyny provider will send your prescriptions to Progyny RX. That Progyny RX coordinator will be in touch with you to coordinate next day delivery to your home for all medication that is needed. It's really wonderful. So you don't have to worry about picking the medication up.
Yeah.
Furthermore, once you actually have that medication in hand, you will be able to call a Progyny RX coordinator. They will walk you through the process of how to administer your medication, how to store your medication, what each medication does and what its purpose is. So that way you're not really going into it in the dark. Some of the medication is injectable, so it's really nice to have, yeah, I'm sure, Sarah, you understand it. It's
Yeah.
nice to have that support while you're going through that process, especially if it's your first time.
Nice. That's really nice to have that extra support because, you know, I do remember when they were like, okay, you're going to be injecting this into yourself. And I'm like, I'm going to be what now? Because that's something I have never pictured myself doing whatsoever. And honestly, I think I blanked a lot of it out until we've been having this conversation. I'm like, oh yeah, I remember that. And another question I have is, I know, you know, a lot of times when people might think about the fertility journey, you know, what kind of families can this help to support?
So our Progyny benefit really is equitably designed to reach all paths to parenthood. And what we mean by that is it doesn't just reach heterosexual couples, it reaches same-sex couples, single parents by choice, the LGBTQ community. We not only offer coverage for traditional IVF, IUI, but we also offer coverage for fertility cryopreservation. So if there is a transgender member that is going through hormone therapy, then they can utilize and access the benefit to preserve their fertility tissue for later use when they are ready. In terms of same-sex female couples, we will cover reciprocal IVF. So if both partners are on the plan, one partner can move forward with the retrieval process. The other partner can move forward with the frozen embryo transfer. This allows both women to be involved in the family building process as well. And then same-sex male couples can also access the benefit and utilize the preliminary surrogacy smart cycle utilization, which covers any of the genetic screening, the fertilization, any diagnostic testing that needs to be done prior to using a gestational carrier. And then, of course, male members also have access to sperm cryopreservation as well. So really, the benefit can be used by anybody who is looking to pursue their path to parenthood or even postpone that journey so that way they are not sacrificing the viability or the health of their fertility tissue.
You just made me think of two questions. The first one, when it comes to surrogacy, does Smart Cycle include all the costs for surrogacy, or is it just some of the costs of surrogacy? Because I think there's probably multiple layers of different things that would fall into surrogacy, right?
That's a really good point, Sarah. So in terms of surrogacy, We do cover, like, again, that preliminary testing, so the genetic screening, the diagnostic workup, the FDA workup, and then also included is donor tissue coverage. So donor tissue coverage is where a member may need to purchase tissue before moving forward with their fertility journey. So this could be a cohort of eggs or also a bundle of viable sperm. Now, once they have that cohort or sperm in hand, they would then move forward with the applicable treatment. But let's just say, as an example, there's a same-sex male couple. So they need a cohort of eggs to move forward. They will then work with a tissue bank, purchase the cohort of eggs, which is between 6 to 8 donor eggs. That will deduct 1 smart cycle from their overall lifetime balance. And then once they have those eggs in hand, they can then utilize the surrogacy management under the smart cycle utilization, which will cover all of the fertilization genetic testing. And then they would be responsible for the cost of the frozen embryo transfer to the surrogate. So Progyny and the Progyny benefit would really cover a portion of the surrogacy journey for that member, but the actual cost of transferring that tissue to the surrogate would be an out-of-pocket expense to that member.
Okay, but I mean, it's still really important to know that the service is there and that it would help with a significant amount of the cost. You know,
It definitely would.
that's amazing.
Just having that opportunity to utilize the benefit and fertilize and genetically screen the embryos before moving forward with the transfer really decreases a lot of cost throughout that journey. So just having access to that is really a wonderful opportunity.
It really is. And then the other question you made me think of is also thinking about people who may be going through medical procedures at a stage of their lives that they weren't necessarily thinking about it. So somebody who maybe in their 20s or 30s are experiencing chemotherapy or, you know, some other type of treatment, or at least they know that they're going to have to. Would they be able to utilize Progyny for, you know, harvesting and maybe preserving some of their eggs?
Absolutely. So oncofertility is definitely something that we support. If you are diagnosed with, if you are given a cancer diagnosis, then you can utilize the Progyny benefit to preserve that tissue. 1 year of storage is included within the Progyny bundle. And then after that 1 year of storage, the future annual costs would be an out-of-pocket expense to the member, but we will cover that cost. And if you have to pursue the egg cryopreservation multiple times before you start chemotherapy, then we can help support you along that journey as well.
That's really important to know. I have a friend who actually just had to go through that whole process, and it's not something to think about, you know, or, you know, whether or not that's an option. So that's a real nice support to have.
In cases like that, Sarah, it happens so quickly, and typically you're moving so fast in order to get into treatment. So if a member finds themselves in that position, I would highly suggest they reach out to a patient care advocate, and we can find a clinic that can support that as soon as possible, so you have that coverage.
No, that's really good to know. Victoria, you have been wonderful. And before I let you go, is there anything else that you can think of that we need to make sure that we're letting people know about that would be good to know?
I would say the only other thing that I would mention, Sarah, is just financial responsibility. It's just so important that members know and are aware of what they may be responsible for. So I just want to note that Progyny runs concurrently and it is embedded within your medical plan. So there is no additional cost aside from what your plan's deductible, coinsurance, and max out-of-pocket is for the year. Progyny will apply that same deductible, same cost share, and then once you've reached your maximum out-of-pocket, you are covered at that 100%. And then, of course, if you would like any estimates on what you potentially could be billed, your PCA can give those estimates to you.
I think that's a really good point. So like for somebody who has a high deductible plan,
Mhm.
they, before the plan will pay 100%, they have to hit, I should know these, but I don't. So, let's say you have to hit $4,000 before your medical plan will kick in.
Mhm.
So if I'm going to sign up and do a smart cycle,
Mhm.
I then am responsible for the $4,000. And then after the $4,000, the smart cycle kicks in at 100%. Is that how it works?
Not quite. So your smart cycle will continue to be utilized as your authorization is created and processed. So when you're authorized for a treatment, it will deduct from the balance. Now you will be responsible for the cost share for services rendered. So let's say you do have that $4,000 deductible and you receive a $1,200 bill from your provider. You would be responsible for 100% of the cost until, and you would continue to be responsible until you had satisfied that $4,000. Now, once your deductible has been met, you are only responsible for the cost share. So that would maybe be 20% of services rendered. You would continue to pay that 20% until your max out of pocket was met at 100%. But as you're pursuing the treatment, the smart cycles, if you are authorized for treatment, they would deduct from your balance.
Okay, so just so that making sure that I'm understanding the bouncing ball. So, if I'm
Mhm.
going through and I'm going through the smarts, I've been approved into the program, I'm responsible for the out of pockets like I would be,
Mhm.
were I going through the traditional medicine. However,
Mhm.
I'm able to find a more cost effective, better way of pursuing these that ultimately could save money down the road.
Exactly. That is exactly.
All right, I think I get it. Well, again, sometimes it's, not all that easy. Victoria, thank you so much for spending the time and going through all that. I really appreciate it. And we will have definitely more information on Progyny. If you go onto My Life at Gannett, under the benefits section, you'll find more information about it. And again, thank you so much.
Thank you, Sarah. It's been a pleasure. Thank you so much.
Thank you.